morning, America. Today, I'm going to be pausing our regular program. I'm not really going to be digging into much news this morning. Today, I'm here to speak to you as a patriot, as a Christian, and as a woman who has sat stunned, really in silence over the last 24 almost hours. Because yesterday, on a college campus in Utah, a good man was murdered, a very good man. He was a husband, he was a father, and he was a warrior for liberty. And really an inspiration of mine, Charlie Kirk. And make no mistake about it, Charlie was assassinated. This was not Charlie was killed. This was not Charlie was murdered. He was gunned down, not in a back alley, not in a hidden corner. He was brought down in front of young people whom he devoted his life reaching. I mean, he devoted his life to reaching young people, and he was gunned down right in front of the very young people he devoted his life to reaching. So the flags are flying at half-mast tonight, or today, through Sunday. Last night, Donald Trump issued an executive order saying that the flags must be flown at half-mast. President Donald Trump, we're going to get to his remarks. He was an ally, brother in Christ, and a brother in the cause of freedom. So Trump ordered the flags to be flown at half-mast. So I do want to listen if you haven't heard it yet. I mean, his voice is sort of trembling here. President Donald Trump spoke from the Oval Office. This is going to be really tough for me, folks. I met Charlie Kirk once. I mean, briefly. He signed one of my books. It's actually back here on my shelf. Very cool guy. You can tell he's definitely like a bit of an autist, like very smart. And it was really cool to chat with him. I told him I was a radio host at the time. It was back in 2021 when I was a radio host and producer. And he goes, oh, well, that's really cool. And he signed my book. It was a brief encounter. But we're going to have Kev Phares, who accepted an award from Charlie Kirk. Kev Phares was a colleague of mine, former colleague. We worked at a radio station together. And he was also Turning Point USA chapter president at ISU, Illinois State University, which is my alma mater. And I don't know if you've heard President Trump speak yet, but I do want to share this with you. You can hear his voice trembling a little bit, but he speaks from a position of power and strength, as always. And I'm sure I know Trump had a very close relationship with him. And this message was probably one of the hardest ones he's probably had to deliver at the Oval. Take a listen.
I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
His voice trembled a little bit there, but you could tell that he was projecting strength, and you heard it. Trump used the word martyr, and that is a word that has been whispered in every corner of this country since Charlie fell, and that is the right word. Now, normally when a tragedy like this happens and strikes, you'll hear the ruling class, and a lot of my friends, even on the right, the left, they're going to try to tell us what we're supposed to do, right? And Trump didn't call really for this, for us to come together in unity. I didn't hear him really talk about that. He called for us to share the values Charlie had. He called for us to unite under a specific message and under a specific set of values, and to become patriots who are devoted to God. That's what Trump called for. Now, usually, I and a lot of my friends would, in a tragedy like this, when tragedy strikes, we all call for, condolences, unity. We all call for the condemning of political violence. I've seen on social media way too many times, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, or no matter what your political differences are, or wherever your political stances are, this is a tragedy and we should condemn political violence, and we should stand together as one people. And usually after a tragedy like this happens, I'd say, yeah, let's stand together in unity, and let's express our condolences. But I'm not here to tell you that today. We aren't one people, and we haven't been for a long time. And let me lay it out for you, because I've convinced myself over the years that when the left has called me a racist, KKK cat, or called good men like Charlie bigots, or sexist, or fascist, or threats to democracy, I've convinced myself up to this point that it's just rhetoric. It's just noise. They're just silly, and they're just words. But today, we're seeing the effect of those words. And the effect is a widow and 2 orphan children, two children who will not have a memory of their father. And we have an effect of a family being broken because the left couldn't stand the fact that a peaceful guy was winning debates on college campuses. So this wasn't about Charlie Kirk being extreme. This isn't about really political indifferences or political differences. This isn't about incitement, that Charlie's rhetoric was too violent or that the left is violent. They killed him because he was effective. They killed him because he was effective and he inspired other people, and because he gave young conservatives and Christians something that the left and the demonic spirits of this world can't tolerate, and that is hope. So no, I'm not going to stand in solidarity with a godless ideology. I won't do it. I'm not going to stand in solidarity and unite with people who have an ideology that murdered, assassinated Charlie Kirk. I want to defeat that ideology. And I'm not standing in solidarity. So I want to bring you this tweet. Barack Obama, he chimed in. He posted this. He says, quote, "We don't know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this is the kind of despicable violence that has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and his 2 young children." On its surface, it sounds nice. Sounds very statesman-like, comforting. But let me help you out, Barack, because you left something out. You said, we don't know the motivation here. Oh, but we do. No earthly thing motivates a man to commit an act this demonic. Okay, what killed Charlie Kirk was not a policy dispute, political differences. It wasn't even really, I would say, personal hatred of Charlie Kirk. That's not what killed him. It is a demonic force that has infiltrated the Democrat Party. And I'm not even mad anymore, folks. I know that it might come off and sound mad, but my faith is really deepened just within the last 6 months. And I don't get mad. I pray out loud for Governor J.B. Pritzker. I pray out loud for the Democratic Party to be safe because we so desperately need them back. We need them to unite under the values that Charlie held. We need them to unite under his message. We need him to unite. We need them to unite with us in a patriotic devotion to God. We need them to return to God, the Democrat Party, because it has been infiltrated by a demonic force. And when I hear JB, when I hear leftists talk, I don't even see the people anymore. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't even see them as people. I see them as shells. And there is a demonic force that has infiltrated their very souls. And you can't have debates with these people. You just can't. So I know some pearl clutchers are out there. They're going to say, well, that's really harsh. You're saying that there's a demonic force within the Democrat Party. Yeah. Paul told us in Ephesians 6, chapter 6, verse 12, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against rulers of the darkness of this world, and against evil spirits. Charlie Kirk was killed because he stood against those powers. And that's why I say he's a Christian martyr. And I know you want to know strategy. You're probably wondering, Kat, where do we go from here? Well, the left thinks that they've won. Social media, and we'll get to this today, ghoulish celebrations from the radical fringe, memes, very distasteful memes, good riddance posts. I've gone through and I've deleted a lot of things on my own page. You guys can go find me, Conservative Cat Show. I've pretty much blocked all the trolls because I'm done having conversations with these people. The discourse was over when the bullets started flying. Okay, it's been over since the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. I will not be satisfied until your knee bends and you profess Jesus Christ as Lord. I'm here to defeat your ideology. I'm not here to unite with it. And you've got the smirks of all these soulless people. They're reveling in the death of a father, a husband, and a patriot. And I don't think that they've understand what they've just done. So Admiral Yamato after Pearl Harbor. So this was an admiral. He warned his government. He said, "I fear what we have done is awaken a sleeping giant, and we have filled him with terrible resolve." Mark it down, folks. Murdering Charlie Kirk is going to be remembered as a moment, the moment the American right finally woke up and understood the reality of what this is. It is a full spiritual warfare going on, full-blown war going on, and we have to defeat an ideology. So this is the time the American right woke up, and we do not have political differences. This is just not a policy dispute anymore. Okay, and let's be honest, this is a war. This is not a civil dispute among countrymen, but this is a collision between two worldviews that will never see eye to eye and shouldn't see eye to eye, because really this is a fight between good and evil. Charlie tried to fight this worldview, this dangerous ideology, through debate. He even tried to do it through humor, through grace. The other side fought it with a bullet. So I want to read the words of Jesus. This is in your Bibles in red. Blessed are which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. Charlie has a great reward for him in heaven, and he has his reward now. But for us, this is not a time to sit idly by. Okay, my Christian faith requires me to pray for those who curse me, yes. And I'm not mad at these people anymore. I'm not even mad at flesh and blood or people like Governor J.B. Pritzker or those who I have what you would call political disagreements with, because I don't even really see it as political disagreements anymore. I see it as a fight against demonic forces that have infiltrated, particularly, I would say, the Democrat Party. And, you know, my Christian faith does not require me to stand idly by while barbarism and savagery are unleashed. So it's quite the opposite. My Christian faith tells me to fight against these things. So every time I feel discouraged, every time I feel like the fight is going to be too hard, or like I can't do this anymore, we can't fight this anymore, I'm going to force myself to remember or even watch the video of the good guy dying, assassinated in Utah. I'm going to force myself. You know, this is Anna Paulina Luna. She's been talking about taking the video down. And I told you just yesterday about my feelings about Irina Zarutska, how she was stabbed. The video is out there, and I had mixed feelings about it being out there. I think that we've got to keep that video out there, because we have to look back and watch this guy die. And then after you force yourself to watch it and you remember the sight of a good man dying in Utah, you're going to return to work. And you're going to destroy the ideology that did it, that killed Charlie Kirk. This is an ideology. This is really a religion, satanic cult that has infiltrated the Democrat Party. And, you know, I'm not going to do it through violence. I'm not going to do it through bullets, but I'm going to do it through truth, through courage. And I'm going to refuse to yield to the godlessness, to the lies, to the culture of death that kills babies in the wombs of women. And I'm going to, you know, refuse to yield to this ideology that sterilizes children and turns cities into sewers. I'm going to refuse to yield to this godlessness that murdered Charlie Kirk. So Charlie's fight isn't over. Ours is just beginning, or Charlie's fight is over. He doesn't have to fight anymore. Our fight is just beginning. The assassin tried to silence him with his bullet, but he failed. And we don't know where the manhunt is still underway. I mean, this had to be somebody actually chimed in here, and they said, this is calculated. This was a coordinated attack. Yes, I'm starting to believe that. As soon as that guy was arrested, he looked kind of like Tim Walz, to be honest with you. Tim Walz, dorky looking fella. And I said to myself, I go, that guy did not kill Charlie Kirk. I mean, this was from 200 yards away, which I know some people will say isn't that far, but if you've ever been out on a range, I can't shoot really from 10 yards away. I'm not a really good shot, but that is pretty far. and this was a kill shot. This is right in the aorta. Very tough to do from 200 yards away, and through a crowd of people, and then escape. Okay, so this was very calculated. Whoever did this, I would say, trained in some sort of way. But the assassin tried to silence him. We don't know who the manhunt is still underway, from what I can tell. They released the guy that was an older looking man. I think that they interrogated him, and then they ultimately released him. I think that he tried to take credit for the assassination. The assassin is going to fail. He's not going to silence Charlie because his voice is louder today than it was ever was. His legacy is etched into the hearts of millions of Americans, young Americans, who will pick up right where he left off. So I want to pray. And I don't want to pray with hate. And, over the last few months, 6 months specifically, I don't know what has happened in my faith, but I don't even get mad at these people anymore. And, everybody knows me. Anybody who knows me knows me. I'm pretty fiery, pretty passionate. But there was a couple things that happened, I think, over the last 6 months was, I had some missionaries come to a church and speak with me, or speak with our congregation. And they said something that really just stuck in my soul, that Jesus Christ died for the radical Muslims. That was a tough pill to swallow for me. Not gonna lie. When I heard that, I was like, whew, my soul, my heart was convicted. I realized how much hatred in my heart I had for these radical Islamic terrorists. And then JB, Darren Bailey, he's running for governor again, looks like it. And he shared, Darren Bailey, it was an AI generated image of JB Pritzker, and he had hands on him, praying over him. And Darren had said, we need to pray for JB, like actually. And I had never really done that, so I prayed out loud for him. Man, my heart softened. It's not that I love these people, right, or care for these people, but I see them as people infiltrated by demonic force, and I'm fighting the demonic force that has infiltrated their souls. And that is how I'm approaching this now. And, I want to pray, rest with God, Charlie. We'll take it from here. Now, I want you to picture this, and a little bit later in the show, I do want to get to, of course, 9/11. We are going to pay tribute to those who lost their lives here in a few minutes. And then Kev Phares, who hosts a YouTube channel called Speechless. You guys can go subscribe to him. Subscribe while you're here right now. He's going to join us because Charlie Kirk actually awarded him, and this was a very proud moment for me, being that I, kind of helped Kevin train in radio a little bit. We worked together, colleagues. It was really cool. He got invited to Mar-a-Lago to receive this award, and Charlie Kirk called Kev the radio guy. He goes, he's a radio guy. And he was a TPUSA chapter president at Illinois State University, and he's going to be joining the show around 7 o'clock to tell us a little bit about his relationship with Charlie Kirk and how he transformed not only his personal life, but his career. So I want you to picture this: Charlie Kirk, a friend, a brother, in a fight for truth. He's our brother in a fight for truth, standing on a stage in Utah. And he was speaking, and he's done this 1,000 times before. I watched him, and, I could talk about the lax security at these events. I've gone to a couple of them. I went to the one most recently at ISU in April, where somebody was actually dressed in satanic garb and chanted a curse. I went up to the satanic guy and asked him, hey, what did you say to Charlie Kirk? And he said, oh, I put a curse on him. Okay, so when I say that our battle is not with flesh and blood, but of the principalities and of the evil spirits of this world, I mean that. So there was actually somebody who was satanic, and I'll play the clip here in just a second. But this Utah University, at ISU, they did a piss poor job. Okay, they didn't allow Charlie Kirk. I talked to some of his folks, his people, and I said, hey, what's up with the amplification devices? They're not loud enough. You've got all these people crowded around this tent. This is not good. And there was maybe a handful of security officers, definitely nobody on the rooftops or on the bridge there by ICU. And they said, well, they denied us the use of amplification devices, said that we couldn't use it. You know how dangerous that is, okay, for Illinois State University to have done that, to deny them the use of amplification devices. You're crowding people around a tent, around a public figure who is controversial, okay, and influential. And you're crowding people around him, and Charlie has about like 4 or 5 security personnel, flanking him. It's like, of course, something like this was bound to happen, because you got these universities who don't even give a damn about the security for these events that draw thousands upon thousands of people. Anyway, so I want you to imagine this. He's, holding our leaders accountable. He's talking about faith. He's talking about freedom. And he's engaging in thoughtful debate with some of these college students. And then it happens. A gunshot pierces the air. Charlie Kirk shot in the neck, crumbles to the floor. Blood, chaos, fear. His audience is shocked. And this man's life was hanging in the balance. We prayed. God's got big plans. I don't know what they are, but obviously God needed him. He did not answer those prayers, God, to spare his life. But God needs him for something. So I don't know what that plan is. But I know that God is a good God. And, what does the media do after all of this happens? And that's where I kind of want to direct our attention. I do want to share with you the clip of the Satanist who was there at Illinois State University back in April. This was shocking stuff. I'm going to share this with you. Take a listen. Here we go. Hold on. Gotta pull this up. There we go.
Looks like we have a Satanist to begin. Yeah. In the name of Jesus, I repudiate this unclean spirit. Was that your question? Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Not today, Satan. Not today at Illinois State University.
Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. I actually interviewed the individual who was masquerading as Satan. And he said that he put a curse on him. And I want to reiterate this, that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers of this dark world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Our God is bigger. Our God is stronger. Charlie understood that, which is why he said, hey, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. So I want to get to the guardians of democracy, the media, the arbiters of truth, the cable news prophets of modern America. And what did they do the moment Charlie Kirk was shot? They didn't grieve. They didn't pray. They didn't even pause to respect a man who was fighting for his life. No, they instantly blamed him. They looked into the camera and they suggested that Charlie got himself killed. He invited the bullet because of his rhetoric. So this was NBC. And at this point, he hadn't died yet. He was fighting for his life. It looked like there were several blood transfusions that he was trying to get. And ultimately, he succumbed to his injuries. Matthew Dowd, he was an NBC pundit. He was recently fired because of this. But he sat there and he said that Kirk's words led to hateful thoughts, and hateful thoughts led to hateful words, and hateful words led to hateful actions. That's right, folks. The victim of a violent attack was cast as the author of his own suffering. And the corporate media, always desperate to keep conservatives under their boot, nodded along. And if it wasn't this, saying that it was Charlie Kirk's fault, they're going to say that it's Trump's fault and MAGA Republicans' fault. we'll get to Governor J.B. Pritzker because he had also said that. And then if not that, they talk about the gun control issue, which we'll touch on here in just a second. But take a listen to this. This is the MSNBC pundit who has now been fired, by the way. So take a listen.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt,
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of
which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that.
Wow. Insane. Now let's pause there because this is serious. This is insane that you've got MSNBC and some of these pundits, these cable news prophets out there. When a man suffers violence, the first question isn't, well, oh, did he deserve it? That should not be the first question, okay? That's the world's question. That's Cain's question when he raised his hand against his brother Abel. God didn't ask Abel what words he'd spoken, right? God didn't say, well, Abel, maybe you provoked your brother, right? No, he held Cain accountable for the violence. God did. Cain killed Abel, and your brother's blood cries out for me on the ground. That's scripture. That's what scripture talks about. And that's the truth. The world's question is, oh, well, what did he do to you? Right? And scripture has already addressed this because when Abel died, he goes, well, Abel did this. God didn't ask, what Abel words or what words were spoken by Abel. No, he held Cain accountable. So MSNBC and its pundits, they want to invert that moral order. They don't want to talk about, the evil of the guy. They want to talk about gun control. They want to talk about what did Charlie Kirk do to deserve this. They're going to suggest that words are the crime and that the violence is an inevitable byproduct. And that, my friends, is dangerous. Because if you accept that logic, you're saying that speech, your speech, my speech, Charlie's speech, justifies bullets. I don't care what Charlie said. Okay. And Charlie was like, but as far as conservative pundits or conservative activists go, very chill. Okay. He wasn't this, he actually wanted to have discourse and debate and was very respectful. Words don't excuse bloodshed. Okay. And, Obama, with his tweet, he came out and he said, we don't know what motivated the attacker yet. Nothing motivates somebody to do something like that, except an evil demonic force. And once you go down that path, you've destroyed both free speech and personal responsibility when you start blaming people's words for the violence that, is the product. And they say that there's an inevitable byproduct of your words. That's silly. You're going to destroy free speech when you come out and say things like that. So let me be clear. Charlie is not to blame for being shot. The shooter is to blame, and a demonic force that clouds these people and takes over these shells of human beings. That is to blame. End of story. So that's what law, order, and morality demand. The second you begin blaming the victim, you embolden every lunatic who thinks violence is a political argument. And that's what they're doing. They're furthering this political violence by blaming the victim here, blaming Charlie Kirk. And you hand them permission slips. That's what MSNBC was doing. They're saying that, well, he talks a certain way, and then, maybe pulling the trigger isn't entirely your fault if he talks a certain way. And that's how I read Barack Obama's tweet. He said, we don't know the motivation yet. The motivation, nothing motivates somebody to gun down somebody like that. This is how societies unravel. And now He did later apologize, this MSNBC guy. MSNBC issued a statement calling his comments inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. And in a rare fashion, they fired him, which I'm shocked. But let's be real, the damage is done. Because you and I both know the apology game. Okay, they go live, they say this, millions of people hear it, see it, social media clips spread like wildfire, and then the retraction, the apology here, all of that is like bottom of page, 16. It gets buried under the rubble of yesterday's outrage. People are left with the initial impression that he wanted to give, this Matthew Dodd guy, that Charlie Kirk asked for it. And that's what sticks. And I don't care that they were printed a retraction or they apologized or they fired the guy. I don't even really care. So let me tell you that narrative isn't just cruel, that Charlie Kirk asked for it. It's calculated. The left has been perfecting this move for years. They blame conservatives for violence against conservatives. And JB did this. He actually blamed Donald Trump and J6ers for Charlie Kirk's death, which was insane. And they've done this for years. They've blamed J6ers, they've blamed pro-lifers, pro-life activists, and they're doing it again with Charlie Kirk. They're saying that it's somehow conservatives' fault. So I want to bring Kev on, Kev from Speechless. Be sure to go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Kev, how you doing this morning? Are you all right?
Man, Kat, it's a hard morning. I'm making sure my headphones are connected here real quick. Let me just make sure I get those in, and then we will, and then we can really get into this, because I cannot believe the events that are unfolding. I mean,
I'm going to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are. So Kev Phares, he had a radio program, which is now exclusively on, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. And he's at Liberty University right now pursuing a law degree, which is really exciting. But I kind of got to watch Kevin grow. I went to school with Kevin at Illinois State University. And I was, not as brave as Kevin. Kevin was the TPUSA chapter president. And he was always on campus. And I always admired him from afar. And I was like, well, I don't think I could ever join TPUSA because I'm just, I'll get my ass handed to me. And I won't be able to graduate. I couldn't do what Kevin does. And much like Charlie Kirk in a way, Kevin is an inspiration to young conservatives, or was an inspiration to young conservatives on campus, specifically at Illinois State University. And for that, he received an award. And I actually do want to share this clip. This is of Kevin receiving that award down in Mar-a-Lago. This was like a really cool moment where Charlie, he says he's a radio guy, and you can see the pride on Charlie's face here, awarding you this. And I want to play this for our listeners. Take a listen. Here we go.
Next, from the great state of Illinois, this is just for you, Gary. So we got a lot of Illinoisans here. Kev Phares, who he's a radio guy, and you can take over for me. I'll tell you, it's 3 hours is a lot of work every day, but runs an amazing chapter at Illinois State University and does a fabulous job. Kevin, congratulations.
I'm a radio guy, so I'll try to keep it short. It's not easy for me, but thank you so much, Charlie.
Next.
Okay, so Kev, describe what our viewers were watching there.
I do have a longer version of that video too. I posted yesterday. I cut it to end it. Thank you so much, Charlie, just to make sure that there was something, because that's really what I needed to say at the time when I posted it. Look, this is a really sad day.
I know.
I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional.
You just take a minute. It's all right.
Charlie Kirk was Charlie Kirk is the Martin Luther King of my generation. Like, let's be frank here. The left won't want to say it because not only do they viscerally hate the man, but Charlie Kirk should be remembered in the same way Martin Luther King was, leading an entire generation into a movement of progress. Not progress in terms of the progressive era that we see, but a progress. When Obama sets our race relations and our political divisions back 60 years, Charlie Kirk stepped in and said it's time for a turning point. Charlie Kirk stepped in and said, we need to mobilize the young generation, because Obama came in and utilized social media quite effectively and divided our nation in a way that it hadn't been for a long time. Charlie Kirk said, we need somebody to come in and do the same thing, but for good, for God's word, and to bring people into a movement into which, when people feel politically homeless because there's a Republican Party that doesn't seem to represent them and there's a Democrat Party that is representing evil, we can be the lead for change. And that's what Charlie did. And so in death, there's a few things I've been trying to search for in this, and clearly answers are what a lot of people want. And there's one big one that I can come to the conclusion of, and it's that because people want to know why. People are saying, like, why did this have to happen? Why now? A lot for several months now, since Donald Trump has taken office, people have said that woke is dead. Woke is dead, and let's be clear, woke might be near it. But there are dying breaths and wheezes of that movement that are coming out. And let's be honest, when evil dies and when evil is dying, it's not going to go down peacefully. And so I'd say Charlie's death is a tragic evidence of his own winning. Because when woke seems to believe that they have very few other options and they're backed into a corner, as Charlie constantly did on every campus he went to, with every leftist and evil person that he would talk to, he backed them into a corner. And what did he do? He backed woke into a corner to the point of which they believed, maybe if we just shoot him, then maybe our evil ideology can maintain and persist. But the big problem with that thought process, that just shows how little that the other side, that evil part of the other side, doesn't know their opposition, is that Charlie's death, it's like that Greek dragon that Hercules fought, where if you cut off one head, you're going to have double the amount in its place, because the amount of people like me, my story, while I consider my story exceptional in terms of how close I was able to get with Charlie in the time that he was alive, it's not entirely unique. The amount of people that are like me, that were inspired to do things that they probably never would have done if it were not to have such a calming but strong voice at the head of the table. There's a lot of them. And so all that to say, this tragedy will not be in any type of vein. Charlie's death, there will be many like me as I currently pursue my JD and plan to devote my life to public service after. There's a lot of others just like that. I mean, I wouldn't be at Liberty University if it wasn't for Charlie Kirk. I didn't know Liberty University existed until I was at a Turning Point event in 2019, 2020, and they had a table there. And then Charlie started talking about it, because he started talking about how every other college is a scam except for Liberty. Liberty is pretty good, and maybe one or two other Christian ones around the nation. But he'd be like, those ones are okay. You can go to those ones. And actually, Erica right now is actually seeking a PhD in biblical studies at Liberty, at least according to all of her social media. But I'm here because I didn't know Liberty existed. And then I was at a Turning Point event, and I said, you guys have a law school? And they said, yeah. And I said, I guess I'll have to apply there. And that's why I'm here.
Wow, Kevin, I appreciate you sharing this story and how Charlie Kirk personally, and like you said, it's not just you. I mean, I had a brief in case he signed one of my books. It was really cool to meet him. Got a quick picture. My first impression of him was, okay, this guy's a genius. Because, when you meet geniuses, they're very like, I wouldn't say he's like super, super social. I mean, by all appearances, he's like a social butterfly, but you meet him and like you can tell things are just going on in his head like constantly. And I will never forget TPUSA. You actually encouraged me to go to this conference. I'll never forget it. You told me about it. And I went to it in 2021. This was my last chance to go to a student action summit because I had just graduated Illinois State University. And Charlie, he spoke on Saturday, and I was not living in the way of the Lord and did not devote my life to Jesus Christ at this time. I just had gotten done with college and was really a conservative, but hadn't really devoted my life to Christ yet. And Charlie, he spoke on Saturday, and he all invited us to the service on Sunday, day after. And I had been, drinking, not with the way in the way of the Lord. And for some odd reason, I just wanted to go to the Sunday service. And Charlie, like his voice rang in my head, and he was like, "Go to the Sunday service. You won't want to miss it." And I woke up Sunday morning, and I was like, "All right, I'll go." I was not living in the way of the Lord. I hadn't gone to a church service in a pretty long time. And, I had such a God encounter, like the Holy Spirit. To this day, I look back on that moment. I'm like, I didn't profess Jesus Christ as my Lord right there. It's kind of interesting how the Holy Spirit works. He starts tugging on your heartstrings and he pulls you into the faith. So it was about a couple of months later, not even probably about a month later, where I completely gave my life to Christ. And I don't think that would have happened had I not gone to the service that Charlie invited all of the students to. So just little things like that. He touched so many people. And I don't know about you, Kev, but this morning I opened the show and, I see a lot of this and it really like pisses me off. I know that's language, right? But usually when tragedy strikes like this, you see people on social media expressing condolences, calling for unity, condemning political violence, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. And I've convinced myself for years that the left, when they call you a fascist, when you have a professor assault you, when you have a candidate call the police on you, this actually happened to Kevin where he was attacked like physically by a professor. And then he was also ushered out of his own campus by police officers because a Democrat candidate called them or had them show up. I've convinced myself over the years that when they do things to you, do things like that to you, Kevin, or what they've done to Charlie, called him a racist, bigot, fascist, threats to democracy. I've convinced myself that that's just rhetoric. It's just noise and don't take these people seriously. But we're seeing the effect of that noise. And the effect is 2 children and a widow. The effect is a guy died. So I don't want to stand with this godless ideology. I don't want to stand in solidarity with these people anymore. I don't know if you've gotten there yet, but I want to defeat this ideology. And I'm not interested in coming together or in these calls for unity or working with the other side of the aisle anymore. I'm just not. And it's not anything personal. Like for me, I've not even mad at JB. I'm not even a JB Pritzker or the Democrat Party. I'm not even angry anymore. I just want to defeat the ideology that has gripped their souls. And I feel bad for them. And that's like something that I've had to come to terms with in my own personal faith, because I used to be so angry. And now I just want them to come back home, you know? So, tell me a little bit about your own personal attacks and the leftist attacks against yourself. Being a chapter president, you are the TPUSA chapter president at ISU. Tell me about your encounters, just yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you summed up a lot of it pretty well. I was physically assaulted on Veterans Day of 2019, in which I was hanging up a poster for Turning Point USA as I was trying to start that chapter. A professor came up to me when I was trying to hang up a poster, and he asked me what I was doing, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just trying to spark some interest in a club I'm starting here." And he told me to enjoy hell. And that alone is like, what the heck? You're a professor. That's inappropriate to say to a student. And so I was like, "Excuse me." And then he was like, "You heard me." And he started walking back to his office. And I didn't know this professor. He wasn't one of mine, but he was clearly a professor based on his age. And so I walked back or I followed him a little bit, and I was like, "Excuse me, sir, can you please like tell me about this? Like, why would you say that to a student? That's incredibly inappropriate." And when he got to his office, he kind of slammed the door a little bit. And so I went up to it and I knocked on the door and I said, "Sir, I'd really like to discuss this. That's inappropriate. And if you think that's okay, then I really think that we would disagree on whether or not you should be teaching here." And I went to take a picture of the nameplate outside of his door so I wouldn't forget it. And as I did that, he opened the door again to see if I was still there. And there was a struggle in which he tried to grab my phone. He grabbed my arm, tried to take my phone. And when he couldn't get my phone, he positioned his body a little bit in front of me and like hip tossed me. And that was a really scary moment. I don't really, I mean, even now it takes on a new memory for me, that one, simply for the fact that, like, I mean, what happened to Charlie isn't a new thing. I mean, the idea of political violence in general has been long standing, but specifically, I find it poetically tragic, or tragically poetic, I must say, that Charlie died in the way he did, in the fact that he started Turning Point with the idea that it's hostile for conservatives to be on college campuses, and he wanted to create an organized movement that would make that would organize people to be able to offer a dissenting opinion, and he died doing just that. Only so in death he's proven to the utmost degree that he was right. It is hostile for conservatives to be on a college campus, even when you think you've won, even when Trump is in office, even when you seem to have a significant majority coming to your side. It is hostile for conservatives to be on a college campus. And yes, I see some comments in there. It was at ISU. This is back in 2019. It was a professor of sociology. And it was really difficult. I mean, we also had, when I was running Students for Trump there in 2020, there was a African-American student that had hit Josh while we were out doing for that. My vice president of it at the time, my best friend. We received professors and students alike that would come up and use that very rhetoric that you were talking about, that we were all Nazis, racist, fascist, bigots, misogynists. We'd even get things that weren't necessarily politically derogatory, but like, I mean, I was called, are we on the radio right now?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. We were called piss babies, which it was like, I guess points for creativity. But and I think that's what it comes to, Kat. I mean, you talk about how, a lot of times you believe that this is just hyperbole, this is just rhetoric and whatever. And I think to some it is. I think to a lot of Democrats, they wiselessly throw around those words for cheap political points. But when an average person that doesn't have a job calls you,
Oh, hold on, Kev. I think
you're
we lost
tabling, you have to tell. Oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we
Am I
lost
back?
you. But yep, we're good.
I think when it's like this, a jobless person in college that calls you a Nazi, a lot of them probably believe it. But you have to tell yourself that they don't, because when you're out there and tabling and trying your best to change hearts and minds, if you start to tell yourself that this person genuinely believes I'm a Nazi, the effect on your psyche will be incredibly, almost unmanageable. And for a lot of people. And I think that's why we push ourselves to believe that it's just rhetoric. And also because you'd like to believe as a follower of Christ that most people are good. And that the majority of the people that you get along with and that you find in your life are good people. But because they're made in the image of God. I mean, it's in Genesis. And so when you come across somebody with such visceral hate and evil in their heart, it's really hard to reconcile that with your belief in goodness from Christ.
Yeah, just in my own personal faith, I think the way that I've begun finally to reconcile that. And, I had a lot of hate in my heart, because of the attacks. KKK cat is one of the favorites that I've got.
Your
Screaming.
name starts with a C. It's not even funny.
I know. Blowhorns in your face, things sent to your doorstep. It's insane. But I've begun to realize, like, there is no way, like, flesh and blood humans are capable of this kind of violence. And that's what leads me to believe that this is an evil force. I want to get to this comment and have you react, Kevin. We all know conservatives are blaming the left for this, because you don't want to admit that it's been your side of the political aisle that has been stoking the flames of political violence. Yes, it was horrendous that Charlie went out like that. You conservatives rather be hyper-fixated on transgender people rather than acknowledging and addressing the political violence coming from your side of the political aisle. Your thoughts there? Addressing some comments here.
Simply put, on that one, I mean, he says you'd rather be hyper fixated on transgender people. The word transgender did not come out of my mouth on this podcast until I was just now referencing that comment. So the hyper fixation that you seem to believe is there really isn't. And if this was a transgender shooter, I absolutely would talk about I would talk about the need for mental health care just as much as I have with the Minnesota one, with the Tennessee shooter, with the dozen other of instances in which people that were suffering from gender confusion and that severe mental issue. But in this case, what we're really talking about right now is memorializing the man. And I'm not really looking. I mean, I think that there are people to place blame on, and there is rhetoric to place blame on, but a lot more of where I'm at right now in this is remembering the person, because ultimately, no matter who shot him, you have a man who was in his young 30s, who his parents now have to bury, his wife now has to bury, his children, 3 and 1 year old, have to bury and grow up never knowing their father. So I think it's only right that people like myself, who are incredibly impacted by the guy, be sad, be angry, and seek answers. And that's what I'm here to do right now. And so if you want to come on here, Colson, and try to say it's, oh, well, we all know you conservatives are blaming the left. You're oversimplifying it. And you're not really listening. And it's with people like you that I'm refusing to really give any time of my day right now.
Well, and it's fascinating. They say that it's our side of the political aisle. All day yesterday, I tried to wrap my head around. I was like, really, like, is there because I don't even think that we're at a point of political violence at this point, or political discourse, or a disagreement over policy. I don't think we're at that point in this country. I think really it's a battle between evil and good. And I don't even see left, right, conservative, Democrat, Republican. I don't even see that anymore. I don't even see those labels. I just say evil and good. And anything that possesses a person to go put a bullet in somebody's neck, in front of thousands of people like that. A guy who had children, this woman who's going to be widowed. Anything that possesses a person to be like that, they aren't really a leftist. I mean, or like even a person, like, and that's like so hard for me to grapple with, because it's like my whole life up to this point, my whole adult life, like for the last 5 years, I'd say that, oh, it's the fight against the left, it's a fight against Democrats. I don't think so. We're seeing this kind of play out where even in, I forget what state, remember those state lawmakers, the guy who worked for, this story has completely been off the radar, but he went after Democrat state representatives. Okay. And one of these Democrat state representatives, she was the sole vote with Republicans.
This is Minnesota, the Minnesota one that got shot?
Yeah, it was in Tim Walz's state, and he was actually appointed to a board by Tim Walz. His wife worked on Tim Walz's campaign. And like, this story has gone completely silent. But I wouldn't say by any definition of the word this guy was a Republican or somebody on the right. and I don't think that it's right versus left. I think it's really quite literally evil versus good. And I tried to think in my head, like examples of, okay, so-called people on the right engaging people on the left and shooting people on the left. Like even January 6th, there was one person who died that day. It's Ashley Babbitt. She was a Trump supporter. You can make the argument that, oh, these officers who killed themselves afterwards, which is, an indirect death, I guess. You could try to argue that they took their lives because of what happened on January 6th, or that the one guy, the Capitol police officer, he had a heart attack a couple of days later. You could try to indirectly connect that to January 6th, but really the facts are that Ashley Babbitt was a Trump supporter. She was shot at point blank range with her head down. She wasn't destroying property, nothing. She was crawling through something that was already destroyed. It was like this window. So I don't even think that it's really right, left, Democrat, Republican. I don't think that there is a political aisle anymore. I think that we're just dealing with evil versus good. And like the transgender shooters, like you could argue that they're leftist or whatever, but really at the end of the day, I mean, the Minnesota shooter who shot up those Christian babies, the Nashville shooter, their political ideology is kind of all over the place. He was pro-Palestine, I think. But like his political ideology was kind of all over the place.
He also, I forgot the guy's name. Was it Brandon Herrera or something? Was shouted out by the transgender shooter because he liked guns, but at the same time, a lot of people on that side of the aisle will call for gun control while taking up arms to take out those that are helpless in the situation and commit awful tragedies. It's really, I do to an extent see that it's right, that it's not necessarily right and left. I think it ends up getting put that way because it's easily digestible by the American populace, as well as by the general American populace, those that aren't necessarily as in tune. And then further, spiritual warfare has a mixed connotation to it, to some not wanting to recognize that evil exists. It's easier for a lot of people to not recognize that evil exists. I mean, that's why I came out and I said to a lot of my friends and stuff after the Minnesota shooting, I said, I'm pretty sure that was demonic. And I had some people that were like, okay, come on. No, like the guy was just really mentally ill. And I go, those are not mutually exclusive. You can be both mentally ill and that can be brought on because of some level of demonic oppression or possession. But even further within that, it just made me realize like, oh, there's a lot of people out there where they're going to say mental illness because it's harder for them to be like, yeah, evil does exist. But evil exists. It's scary to admit that. It's scary, but evil exists. It's out there. And there's a few things that, I mean, like I have my rosary right over there. I have my Bible. Like there's if you want to fight it, don't even need to have a gun. That's what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Catholic, so my rosary, but as long as you got your Bible at a minimum, you'll be there. And that's what I've been trying to turn to. I mean, I posted yesterday on Facebook. I'll pull it up real quick just because I find this to be such a timely and necessary quote of 2 Timothy. I don't know if you had a chance to see that one on my Facebook, Kat.
I sure did. And I think that's also why, and we'll get to this after you read 2 Timothy. I'll let you pull it up.
Yeah, I got it here. 2 Timothy 3:12 through 17 briefly. Indeed, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, while evil men and impostors will go on and from bad to worse, deceivers and deceived. But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have firmly believed, knowing from whom you learned it, and how from childhood you have been acquainted with the sacred writings, which are able to instruct you for salvation through faith in Christ. All scripture is inspired by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, equipped for every good work.
Amen. Yeah, and I think that this fits into, man, I don't know why. sometimes I don't know, the Lord speaks to you in a really crazy way sometimes and touches your heart. And I think that the gun control debate and issue arises, and I think that it's almost easier. So you actually saw Irina Zarutska, beautiful Ukrainian woman here in America. She was stabbed to death viciously this week, very recently, and she was stabbed to death. And her life ended in a pool of blood. And, she was taken down by a knife. And I think that this whole gun knife or this gun control debate, a lot of leftists are coming out. Well, Charlie died by his sword, lived by the sword, died by the sword, right? And Charlie had said things about gun control and how we shouldn't be taking guns away from Americans, and he was a Second Amendment advocate. And they said, oh, well, do you want your gun control yet, conservatives, right? I've seen comments like that. And I think that it's almost easier for them to blame the gun rather than recognize, like you were talking about, that evil exists. So, I mean, the left, if their logic held water, they'd be talking about knife control after Irina Zarutska died. But they don't talk about that. And I think that
they don't even talk about the situation. I mean, they won't talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because it destroys a lot for them. And I think what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. I think that they won't recognize evil, Kat, because if they recognize evil, walk that train out. If you recognize that evil exists, then you recognize that there's an objective good and there's an objective evil. And if you recognize there's a good and objective evil, then you start to walk down the line and say, what is that? What is good and what is evil? And you'll start to see that maybe some of the things that you align with aren't necessarily good, and do fall in line with evil. I mean, the most notable would be the abortion debate. I mean, there's no way that you can really look at abortion and say that that's not evil. So when you recognize evil and it destroys the entire worldview or a significant portion of the worldview you've had, then you can't do it. And so then, yeah, they're going to blame the gun because that's what's going to be easier. The thing is this is where, because I know you said earlier that you'll never, or like you're at a point where it's like you don't even want to work with the other side or anything. And I'm to that point with certain people. I mean, I think my threshold for the people that I will and will not engage with has become shorter. I mean, it's easier for me to just say, yeah, it's not worth my time for some people. But I think that at the same time, anybody is capable of redemption at some point. And while there are some people that I am not equipped to help them with because they're so far gone and need somebody like, honestly, they needed somebody like Charlie to maybe try to help pull them out. I do believe that anybody can be redeemed at any time. And hopefully that someday, if even just one person hears me talk in some way, or do something, or I do something that can impact somebody, I mean, then they'll be saved. I mean, I did have one person who came up to my table when I was in undergrad with Turning Point. Riley was his name. And he came up to me first with like an Antifa pin, I think, and said, I'm a communist. And like 3 years later, after several times of him coming up to me at the table and talking with me, he then became a devout Lutheran and was actually the vice president of the club my last semester, and helped organize getting Cabot Phillips there. So, I mean, I take pride in that impact that I had. Wouldn't have been possible without Charlie. And there's one person that I was able to take from being what he perceived as an edgy communist at the time to eventually being a follower in both Christ and the movement. So,
wow. Yeah. And you're so right. I think that talking about morality requires admitting that there is a higher law, and God is the one who defines right and wrong. What an amazing story. Praise the Lord for Riley. I mean, that was huge. So, yeah, I think that they'd rather talk about magazine capacities rather than repentance.
exactly.
They'd rather regulate all these tools, the knives even, or guns, rather than confront the sin that is in the souls of these people who take these lives so so viciously and so horrifically.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share with you. This is JB, our well, you're not even so Liberty University. That's in Virginia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Virginia now. I have been in talks. I do plan to come back to Illinois. We got a lot of work to do. So after I earn my JD, I'll highly likely be taking the Illinois bar, and working back in Illinois. But you're in South Carolina now, right?
No, not
No?
yet. Almost. I hope. Let's see. But we've got a big fight here with JB Pritzker. Darren Bailey has just announced that he's probably going to be running for governor. I think that a formal announcement is going to come next week. But JB, he talked about January 6th being the reason for the attack on Charlie Kirk. And I just want to play. This is a reaction. Illinois State Representative Adam Niemerk, he reacts to JB a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to react to the calls that the representative makes here upon hearing JB's reaction to the shooting. Take a listen.
Yeah, first I want to express my sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody.
I'm shocked, devastated. This type of thing just rocks me to my core. Honestly, I saw the video and I thought it was a AI something. It couldn't be real. So I'm devastated.
I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence. And the president, what did he do? He pardoned them. I mean, what kind of signal does that send to people who want to perpetrate political violence? Not a good one.
Governor Pritzker, politicizing so quickly. The governor has shown, and here we are getting political with something. This is just unbelievable.
All right. I want to play a little bit of that, Kev, your reaction. And later, I do want to get to John Dannenberger as well, because I want to go back to that.
Yeah. I think Adam kind of hits a lot of it. Even just the few words that he said. JB Pritzker is an opportunist, and I don't really think he actually cares all that much about whether or not Charlie Kirk lived or died. And honestly, I don't really, to some extent, I don't blame him in the fact that he wasn't on his side. He didn't really know Charlie by any means. And so I don't think he would care. I think he only cared in the fact that he could take a grandstanding opportunity. All he needed to say was our condolences to the family, and then just shut up. And he couldn't do that because, as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what he was really trying to capitalize on. And it's tragic. No doubt it was a political killing too. Also for him to say, oh man, we don't know if it was a political killing. Man, if you knew anything about the context of the situation, that he was out on a campus tour, out talking about politics, he was a political activist and he was shot. No one else there was shot. Of course it was political. JB is just, I'm not surprised. And that's, I got to know Charlie better than a lot of people did. I'm not gonna sit here and say I was his best friend or anything like that, but I had a friendly, professional relationship with him. And I can tell you, I think that one thing that he would be surprised by is actually there have been some really nice messages, JB not being one, but a lot of very nice messages from Democrats out there. Gavin Newsom came out and said, and where there is no political grandstanding, they recognize it as a tragedy. And I think Charlie would be more surprised by that than he would be JB's statement and the hateful statements, because Charlie knew the hate that was out there. He knew evil existed. But as he said when he came to ISU, and as he said at several other stops, I'm paraphrasing because I'm just conglomerating all of them, but Jesus is real, the Bible is real, Christ is real, and you can do anything through him. So, and Charlie knew that, and that's why he was able to, that's why he wasn't surprised by the hate. He knew it existed, and he was doing his best to get around it. This is a little off topic, but I wanted to share a story. I hadn't really ever told people this one. When I went down to Mar-a-Lago for the Charlie Kirk event, I thought this was kind of funny. I went down and I was 22, just about. It was actually like a few weeks before my 22nd birthday, I think. And it was just about a year after my uncle had died, my uncle died while I was at a Turning Point event. I was very close with my uncle. That's a separate story. But I was down in Mar-a-Lago. Charlie was doing mic checks and everything. There was a cocktail party that was kind of happening out by the pool. And then inside was getting all set up for the actual dinner and the gala. And Charlie was doing mic checks, and we were all called in. All the like winners of the Campus Warrior Award were called in to like have a little bit of time with him and chat with him, so he could, if he didn't already, I had met him a few times before, but he could have an opportunity to talk to us, ask how things are going, stuff like that. And I had told, and so I talked with him a little bit about ISU and being there and my radio show and all that. And near the end of it, I was nervous. I mean, I was always nervous talking to Charlie. Man was like 6'7", like he was so tall, and I'm a pretty short guy. And I was like, Charlie, like I want to make sure that we can stay in touch because we got a lot that happens in Illinois, and it's your home state, and we'd love to have you help on the fight on the ground. And so I was like, here's my card. Like, shoot me a text. I'd love to make sure that we stay better connected. And he goes. And he kind of laughs a little bit, and he goes, "Kevin, I don't want your card." And I go, "What?" And like my heart sank. This is like one of my heroes. And he's like, he goes, "No, I don't mean that as like a mean thing, but frankly, no one wants your card." And I'm like, "Okay, you double down there."
What is this guy gonna say?
Yeah, and he's like, Kevin, when I was like starting, I was like you in a way. Like I wanted to be in the room where it happened. I wanted to network and work my way up. And I didn't have anything to go off of. And so I had a card. The fact of the matter is no one really wants your card where you're at right now. And that's okay. So instead of giving me your card, ask for mine next time. And he goes, "Here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you Mikey's card." Mikey was like his body man. Like the guy that handled, and he goes, "I have 1,000 people coming up to me every day. Even if you gave me my card, you'd get lost in a minute because I'm going to get a ton of cards from a lot of people that have a lot more money than you. And so yours is going, and so I know who you are, but get in touch with Mikey and anything you need that he'll be there for you." And so he gave me Mikey's card, but it was just a piece of wisdom. It was like the idea of like, here I was, this kid just trying to stay connected, and he was like, nobody wants it. Like he was like, but it was emblematic of like how you kind of got to work your way up, and you gotta force yourself into situations, and it's the little things like that that can really affect the ways in which you work your way to a better place. I just got a call from Ross Webb, by the way, so he's checking it on me, but that's
Ross Webb.
Distracted. But my point being with all that is Charlie was a human, and I think that's what a lot of people, and like he was a very, very smart individual, and I thought he was a little weird the first time I met him. And I was like, this guy, I feel like he won't look me in the eye, and like and it was kind of hard, but it was just because
it was tough when I met him, and I told him a little bit about the radio show in Illinois, and we kind of talked about JB Pritzker for a little bit, and he was awkward. He was an awkward dude. So I could imagine your heart sinking, like when he says, "I don't want your card." He didn't have like this like emotion like to his face a whole lot. Like he was
a matter of fact with it, but
yeah,
but I really appreciated it because it was at that moment that I was like, man, this guy has I mean, like I knew he had experience, but it made me really realize the weight of his experience and how much he learned from it. Because I guarantee you there was probably a point where he tried to give somebody his card when he was younger, and they probably told him something very similar. and maybe
Yeah,
even not even as
what
nice
he's
as he
doing
did.
is sharing. What he was doing was sharing some wisdom with you, and like, hey, humility. Ask, for help,
Mhm.
or ask, people who've been there, done that.
Mhm.
In the Bible, I mean, it talks about, mentorship. I mean, Aaron and Moses, right? Moses, and Aaron was the mentee of Moses. So what he was doing there, I mean, he was just sharing a bit of wisdom with you, which was
Exactly.
really cool memory. Thanks so much for sharing, Kevin.
Yep.
Pam says,
Absolutely. I mean, that was a great one. I mean, I drove hours to see Charlie a few times. I mean, during COVID, he was speaking at a church in like Wisconsin, and Josh Bender and I drove like 6 hours to go see it, because we were asked to, and classes were shut down. So it was like, screw it, we can be on Zoom while we drive. So we did that. I mean, there's so many great memories. I wouldn't know you probably, Kat, if it wasn't for Charlie. I wouldn't have my Turning Point family from all the people across the country if it wasn't for Charlie. I credit Charlie. I would not be who I am and where I am without Charlie. And that's why I'm just in this remembrance. And I know a lot of people are making a lot of this very, very political. And I think there's weight to talking about that, and there's an importance to talking about that. But I knew Charlie in both Charlie the legend, and I knew Charlie in to an extent as Charlie the man. And a lot of people are forgetting Charlie the man very quickly because they didn't necessarily know him in that. But Charlie, and I just want to say it again because this is what the shooter didn't think about. This is what a lot of people who take up and do these awful things don't think about is there's a husband that's dead, a father of young children that's dead. There is a son that's dead. That his kids they'll never know him. There's an important person that touched many lives, countless, honestly. And so it's just a real tragedy for Charlie the man to be gone. The legend, absolutely, but his legend will carry on, and his movement will carry on. But Charlie the man is gone. Yeah. Well, he's with Christ.
Yes, he's with Christ, and the inheritance is going to be wild, because Christian martyrs, and I truly do believe that he was a Christian martyr. He died actually speaking against, like right before he died, he was speaking against the violence in this country.
Mm-hmm. His last word, as far as I knew, and don't watch the video if you haven't seen it, don't watch it. I got to it because I was texted that Charlie had been shot, and so I immediately took to social media, and it was one of the first things I had seen. But his last word, as I remember, it was violence. At least his last word publicly.
I know Anna Paulina Luna is calling for it to be taken down. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. It was really hard to watch the stabbing of Irina, but without watching the full context, you don't really get the gravity of the violence that has plagued the country, and you don't really understand it. I mean, this girl, Irina, in that case, people were calling for the video to be taken down. I've got mixed feelings because nobody ever wants to see that. I saw it. I got texted it as well, and I wish I wouldn't have seen it. It was very, very tough to watch. It just plays over in your head all day yesterday. But people need to know that there is real evil. And that really shows in these videos. I know Anna Paulina Luna is talking about getting taken down, but I don't know. I've got mixed feelings. But I did want to share this. You talked about Charlie the man. And I don't know why this brings tears. And it's harder for me. And I'm sure you've heard that I'm pregnant, right? And
congratulations. I have heard. Congratulations. I'm very happy for you and Brian. Absolutely.
Yes, and it just hits me a lot different when you realize the gravity of widow. And the Bible speaks about widows and how we, as the body of Christ, need to be there for widows. And actually, some NFL players have pledged support to the children, their living expenses and their educational expenses for the rest of their life, which was really heartwarming and touching. Just like this video, and I'll share this with you. Take a listen. Here we go. This is his little daughter. He was on Fox and Friends just, a couple of days ago. And people don't realize that this was Charlie the man. This is the guy that the shooter took from us.
This was over the summer. It was a few months ago, actually. But Charlie had done a short stint as like a guest host on Fox and Friends for an entire week. And this was just it's just such a beautiful, beautiful moment to see Charlie the man. You're right, but I just wanted to clarify that it was a few months ago. But it just shows. I mean, 31 years old, working his way up from an 18-year-old boy from Arlington Heights, now guest hosting a show on Fox News. Insane.
Take a look. This is his daughter, and this just means something so different for me now. I don't know why. Like, I guess I'm not a parent until recently, right? And when I think about, if somebody had taken my husband away from me, the father of my children away from me, what would I do? I don't even know. Like, I can't even go there. And this is the guy they took. I mean, this is not a political, like, he wasn't even really all that divisive. He wasn't a divisive guy. He was just wanting to have a conversation with people. But watch this.
Yep.
So
And that's what I mean. In part, the media is to blame for that. I mean, what did there was an MSNBC reporter that's already been fired for her callous words regarding the situation, or his. I don't remember but I just know that there was a lot of hate and even quickly said. I mean, what's the point in that? A man's been shot, and that's tragic. I mean, your first thing to do is to try to come up with a political point, and there's the man. That's Charlie the man for you. I mean, he was I'm not gonna say he was perfect. I'm not even gonna say he wasn't divisive. There was definitely times where if you go onto his podcast and stuff, absolutely divisive in ways. But that's divisity, and being divisive is not a death sentence. Or
Yeah.
It does not warrant a death sentence, and so that's why even like the people, because like there was a time where there's a quote from Charlie where he was asked about the Second Amendment, and he said when you have a Second Amendment, when people are allowed to own guns, like some people are going to die, and that's going to happen. And he didn't mean it as like, oh, yay for those deaths or anything, or I'm so happy those happened. But a lot of lefties are taking that one quote and posting it now, because it's like, well, I guess you're just the one, and it's a despicable thing to say. But it also just shows, like, I mean, that's not he was never saying that the deaths weren't bad and that it wasn't tragic. He was just saying that we need to weigh freedom with the cost of it, and that there's logical conclusions to come to. And even further, none of those people that are posting that quote actually could care whether or not a man is dead.
Well, and they don't even post the full quote, because you're right. The full quote said, unfortunately, but will die due to Second Amendment right,
Yeah.
And you're right. He is a divisive guy. I'm thinking about it, and he's pretty divisive. But divisive.
But again, that's not a death sentence.
It's not even a bad thing. I want to be divided from people who believe that sterilizing children is okay and killing children in the womb is okay. I want there to be a clear line in the sand, like, yeah, no, I don't think like you, or I am not.
And at the same time, while his ideas themselves may have been divisive, the way he treated other people was not. I mean, if you look at it, he followed the same rule that a lot of other people that would go to speak on college campuses would do. He'd say, if you disagree with me, I want you right to the front. I want you to be the first person up here, because that's how we get to the bottom of things. And that's what I'm here to do, is I want to talk with people that disagree. I want to bridge that political divide. And so I don't even feel like divisive. I've said divisive multiple times. I know you have as well. I feel like that's not even the best word. I say controversial. He had controversial opinions. But any opinion is controversial. There's going to be, for the most part, somebody that agrees and somebody that disagrees. And once again, having an opinion is not a death sentence. And that is what the left has done here. They've said, if you have, and not even the left, it's what evil has done here. Evil has stated that if you have an opinion that is incongruent with mine, then you deserve a death sentence. Well, for the man who killed Charlie Kirk, Utah has a death sentence, and that one is statutorily regulated. And I'm sure that people will be seeking it for you.
Yeah. Well, I think Trump actually issued an executive order and demanded that the death penalty be used. I'm pretty sure. I do want to get to this clip, and then I do want to talk about your Campus Warrior Award, because that is such an amazing name for that award. You got some time until 8 o'clock, about?
Yep, that works.
All right. So this is a clip. You had mentioned the MSNBC pundit. His name is Matthew Dowd. He did, in fact, get fired for his comments, but this was a different comment. This was before Charlie was even stabilized. This was right after it happened. Take a listen. Here we go. One of these cable news prophets.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, to emphasize what you just emphasized, we don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea.
Stupid thing to say.
In which a shooting like this.
What?
Stupid thing. And it just shows you how little they actually know. I mean, like, these are these ivory tower leftists that sit up there and think that they know because of how high they sit. The lack of oxygen gets to their head, and they just don't really know what actually happens in the world around them. I follow Charlie Kirk regularly. Not once, not a single time at any one of his events did somebody willingly fire off a gun in celebration. And you'd have to have the IQ of the average Somalian to believe that actually happened. So
Yeah, well, and then not to mention,
IQ.
like, somebody on the right, shooting off a gun in celebration is not something that Second Amendment or gun advocates would say is good. Okay, like, we're all about trigger discipline. We're all about handling firearms as if every firearm is loaded, and we don't take celebratory shots. Like, this made me want to spit out like my coffee. I was just like, what are you talking about? So gross. So I do want to talk about your Campus Warrior Award.
Yeah, actually,
I
have it right here. I have it pretty regularly. I don't think you can actually see the inscription on it or anything because of the glare and the light. Maybe if I turn.
Put your hand behind it.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, maybe. There you go.
There we go.
Kev Phares.
So that was my Campus Warrior Award. It honestly, it's really kind of a big deal to me that I was given this by Charlie Kirk, and it takes on new meaning now. For Charlie Kirk to call me a campus warrior doesn't feel right. Yeah. I mean, like, I did a lot of work on my campus. Man took a bullet and died. I mean, you want to talk about a campus warrior. For him to call me a campus warrior at one point in my life, and as a part of his, really big deal to me, and huge honor, but not nearly as accurate. I mean, as him. I mean, if I'm getting called a campus warrior, I was getting called it by the best of them. So yeah. It was a really crazy thing. I was nominated by some people within Turning Point that saw me more at the ground level. Charlie and I had met several times before. He knew of my story of being assaulted. He knew the work that I did with Students for Trump that caused a lot of issues at ISU. He knew the persecution we faced, knew the influence and the coalition I was starting to build in the Central Illinois region, and the people and he knew that there was a lot of people that were helping me out with that. Kat, you being instrumental, David Paul Blumenstein, a lot of people in McLean County Republican Party, and just the organization that we were really doing in Illinois, when Illinois had seemed, especially Central Illinois, had seemed to be so disorganized and had little to no youth ground game. And so Charlie took note of that, and he was kind of told a lot more from people on the ground. And I bridged the gap between a lot of Turning Point and that. And so then I found out over Thanksgiving in 2022 that I had been nominated. A week later, I had an interview via Zoom about it. And then, like, a few days after that, 2 days before Thanksgiving, I said, in a week, you have to go down to Mar-a-Lago to receive this award. And I was like, oh, that's really quick. And so I ordered a tux online, or rented a tux online, and paid way too much for it, but I had to because I was like, if I'm going to the president's house, I mean, he was in between terms at the time. But if I'm going to the president's house, I got to look real nice. And Charlie, I got to talk to him for a little bit about the card and the business card thing. And that's where I learned that. And I went down, I had a beautiful dinner. I didn't personally meet Donald Trump, but he came and spoke to our small group. I met a lot of really cool people. I actually, there's a man, I'm not going to say his name on here, but like I knew Gary Rabine. Gary Rabine was down there. He knew Charlie very well. He was one of the first people to invest in Turning Point, and he was down there at that event. But there's another Illinois individual who reached out to me yesterday. I had met him very, very briefly at that event. I have not talked to him since. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn last night at like midnight because I posted just my video, and he was like, "Hey, I remember you from that event. Give me a text tomorrow." And so I haven't texted him yet, but it just shows you, I mean, like, and this happens with a lot of people when they did, but really, I mean, it's just emblematic of who Charlie was, without even meaning to. Brought so many people together in the weirdest of ways. But so I received the Campus Warrior Award, and it will be for all my life. I mean, it'll be right up there with when I earn my JD and pass the bar, of proudest things.
I was proud when you received that. I mean, to watch that video, I was like, tears in my eyes. I was like, he did it. And I will always remember the John Dannenberger story. This is crazy. You went there on a story, a beat with the radio station we were with at the time, and you went to go question a candidate and had the cops at your very own university in which you were a student of usher you out of, a tuition paid, taxpayer paid. This was a public university. They ushered you out of this building for simply asking a question of John Dannenberger. So tell me a little bit about that, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even get to ask the question. I want to be clear about that.
I wasn't even aware.
Yeah. So he had like kind of a line of people waiting to talk to him. And so I was like, oh, and I was told about a potential scandal with him being overseas and lying to, and he was also within the military, and he was over in Spain. And so I was at the time that he was supposed to be there, and this was from a few years prior. And I was just like, why were you in Spain? Like, it seems like you had lied to people.
Well, the military lied. Yeah. He's a Bloomington city council member, folks. Is now city council member, at the time a candidate. So go ahead.
And I was just like, it seems like you lied to someone. Why? And why should people still vote for you despite that? And I wanted to ask that. I prepared it in my head, and I was like, I'm going to ask him about it. And I was in pretty much street clothes. I think I was in like, I might've been in a nice shirt or something and slacks, but I really think I was in like jeans. Like, I didn't look all that professional. And so I went up and I was waiting in this line, and then he was kind of whispering to the guy that he was talking to, and I didn't really know what they were saying. But then all of a sudden, I have cops coming up right next to me, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna. He doesn't really want to talk to media right now." And I'm like, "I'm just trying to ask him a question. I'm a student here. I'm a student reporter." And they're like, "Yeah, well, he doesn't really want to answer." And then his body man guy I could hear him be like, "Well, he's with Cities 92.9." And I'm like, "Oh, so that's what this is about. You got word that somebody was going to ask you a tough question, and then you're like, I don't want to talk to him." And so then my heart was racing. And, especially at the time, I didn't really know, now I know a lot more of what my rights were in that situation. And so I was just like, I was just trying to ask a question. And so if these guys are asking me to leave, I'm going to be compliant. Also because I respect the police, and I'm not a degenerate who would try to fight and say defund them or anything. I mean, I respect the guys, even though that they were doing something that was actually a violation of my constitutionally protected right. I respect them within the place that they hold, as officers, and wearing that badge, because I know that what that really means. But they escorted me out, and they were like, "Hey, I'm really sorry to have to do this." One of them had told me that he had listened to the station and that he liked my show.
Yeah, I know. And you being a campus warrior, I think that you had far more courage than even some officers might even have. And, I think that this death, Charlie Kirk's death, shouldn't go in vain. It won't be. And people should all be campus warriors or just warriors in general. Whether you're a police officer, stand up for what's right, stand up for the Constitution, stand up for freedom, stand up for values. And that's what you did. I mean, you were just trying to exercise your constitutional right, which would be freedom of speech. And that was crazy. I couldn't believe that. I've never really, and like you said, you were awarded the Campus Warrior Award because of what Central Illinois climate is like. And because you've actually made moves in Central Illinois as a TPUSA chapter president, Students for Trump, your work as radio host. I mean, you've done incredible work, and Charlie saw that. And I'm proud of you. Charlie was.
I appreciate it. I got to be honest. I really think that the only way a huge part of this was Charlie and the influence that he had on me, and the persistence that he taught me. And I'll be making probably a longer post on Facebook sometime soon, kind of wrapping up a lot of what I have to say on it, because it's tragic. But I also do have to say, when it came to my work in Illinois, I think I benefited from a sense of ignorance of just how deep the crap is there. I mean, like, I didn't know. I was like, oh, it's just politics. It's just Republicans versus Democrats. But no, there's Republicans that are really more Democrats. There are Democrats that aren't really even Democrats. They're just out for themselves. And the lack of trust that I have for a lot of people has only grown. But that's part of it, and that's what makes that's what makes fighting that fight a unique experience, and why I think Charlie knew it when I didn't even know it, and that's why he was able to he was able to see the benefit of what I was able to do down there. But I was only able to do it because of people like him and people like you, Kat, people like David, Paul Blumenshine, and Josh, and the incredible community that was fostered. All because, I mean, an insecure guy in high school couldn't find his voice, and Charlie Kirk gave it to him, and that was me. So,
yeah. Well, incredible. Thank you so much for your time. You've got class. You got to get out of here. You got to go get your law degree. Okay. I'll see you later. Thanks so much. And I'm praying for you, brother.
You as well. Congratulations on everything, your marriage, your child, and God bless you, Kat. Thank you.
God bless. All right. Folks, I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We got to pray for Charlie Kirk. We got to pray for his family. We have to mourn him, and we have to fight for a culture that values life. We have to fight for a culture that says no to this ideology. We have to refuse to hand over our God-given rights because evil does exist. And we have to realize what we're up against. And we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. I do want to talk about 9/11 today. I want to set aside, any kind of news today and talk about something heavy, something close to the heart of our nation. This was 24 years ago today, on September 11th, 2001. The sky over America was filled with fire and smoke, and the world changed forever. I'm going to take a quick break. All right. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. This is Conservative Cat, patriotpumpenergy.com. Buy your bottle of premium pre-workout today, promo code Conservative Cat. John Dannenberger, yes, John Dannenberger. So the military, that's not me. This was military documentation, said that he lied. He lacked candor. he, said he wasn't able to, represent this woman in the military who made accusations against somebody, and he was a lawyer supposed to represent her. And it was a sexual assault case, and he was supposed to represent her. Said he couldn't represent her at the time because he had prior applications. Well, it turns out he didn't have those prior applications, and he lied to the people who he said he was actually at, and he was actually vacationing, apparently. And so Kevin sent him out on a story. We were together at a radio station. I said, hey, go ask this guy on the campus. He's a student reporter. He goes up to him. He didn't even get his question in. And in fact, he was escorted by police off the campus. I mean, I've never encountered like anything truly violent. I've had blowhorns in my face. I've had things sent to my doorstep. I've had, my car keyed, I've had things like that happen to me. It's silly stuff. Part of the reason why, I had made the ask, I'd gone remote, didn't want to work at the station, like in a physical location anymore, is because of the hatred, the visceral hatred, because of the evil rearing its ugly head. I said, I really don't feel safe. I want my life. And I've really taken a step back from making public appearances. People have always been like, hey, Kat, where are you at? I really try to keep my personal life and like try to limit my public appearances. And I am just not a campus warrior. I am not a warrior in any kind of way. It's insane to me that Charlie Kirk, age 31, has a wife and children, that he was still going out there on campus and putting his life at risk like that. Like I knew that, and he knew. I mean, he prophesied. He literally said this would happen. He said that we know here at the Charlie Kirk, the America Voice team, we know what we're getting ourselves into. And he goes, we have a security team. We know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, and we're not going to stop. The War Room, Jack Posobiec, they all know what they're getting themselves into. And I started going down a path, and I started to realize, I'm getting myself into things. I started getting like cease and desist letters. I started to really get phone calls and things sent to my house, things sent to the office, my car keyed, things like that, notes under my windshield. And I said, nah, I am not willing to do that. And some people are kind of hurt, some people aren't, but I don't know. After watching that video of Charlie Kirk, I think that forcing myself to watch it and telling myself like, hey, you can do this. I mean, if that guy can do that, you can do this, so I'm going to not stand in solidarity with a godless ideology, the godless ideology that assassinated Charlie Kirk. I want to defeat that ideology. And I'm going to try to do it at all costs, because that's what we as Christians are called to do. For years, I've convinced myself, for years, I convinced myself that all the attacks, the racist, the bigot, you're sexist, you're fascist, you're a threat to democracy. Washington Post put out an article on me and some of my friends. I convinced myself that it was just rhetoric and that it was just noise and that these people are silly. But there's an effect to those words, and we're kind of seeing the effect play out today. The effect is a widow and children that will not know their father, grow up remembering really their father, toddlers, and it's really sad. It's tragic. But we have to stand against this radical, godless ideology and do it in a way that Charlie did, with grace, and understand that we're not really fighting people. And my faith has really grown in that way, because it's taken me a long time to learn that these are not actual people that I'm fighting against. This is a evil force, a spiritual force, and the only weapon that you can use is Scripture and God's Word. All right. I did want to talk about September 11th today. Never forget, 24 years ago, September 11th, 2001, a very heavy show today. We're setting aside the usual news chatter for, something heavier, close to the heart of our nation on September 11th, 2001, 24 years ago, America's skies were filled with smoke and fire, and the world changed forever. So today we are remembering the 3,000 souls who never came home, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, people who woke up that morning thinking that it was just another Tuesday. But before the clock struck noon, their names were written in history's darkest chapter. So I want to remember some heroes. And yes, America had heroes that day. Real ones, not the ones with the capes in Hollywood. We had real heroes that day, the flesh and blood kind, the sweat, the grit, the courage that puts the rest of us really to shame. I want to start with the firefighters. The New York Fire Department, they lost 343 men that day, September 11th, 343. Imagine running into a skyscraper when everyone's running out. Imagine climbing the stairwell with 60 pounds of gear on your back, knowing full well that you might not climb back down. And they did it. They climbed. They carried the wounded. They gave water to the thirsty. They prayed with the dying. And when the towers came down, many of them were still inside, still serving. And that's not just bravery, folks. That is a sacrificial love. And there is no greater love than this, than to lay one's life down for a friend. Charlie, the show, that was a sacrificial kind of love. Like I said, a lot of people aren't cut out for that kind of work. I wasn't. I got out of it. I was selfish almost in a way. And Charlie, the epitome of sacrificial love. And these people in 9/11, this was an act of sacrificial love. The brave men and women who went into the towers. Then there's the police officers. Okay, so there was 71 of them who gave their lives that day, 343 firefighters, 71 police officers. There are traffic cops who, switched from writing parking tickets and directing crowds, panic crowds of people. They switched from parking tickets to directing these crowds through the smoke-filled streets. Others dashed into buildings to rescue strangers. And they didn't ask about politics. They didn't ask if you voted Republican or Democrat. They didn't ask about your race, gender, or religion. And this was a different time to grow up in. To go back to a time when people didn't really talk about that stuff, right? And then there was Flight 93. Oh, Flight 93. If there's one story that gives me chills, it's this one. Ordinary passengers, businessmen, moms, a former college athlete. They realized their plane was hijacked. They called their loved ones, they prayed, and they made a decision. They would not let their plane become another weapon. And Todd Beamer said it best, let's roll. And roll they did right into the history books. Their plane never reached its target. They gave their lives so that countless others might live. So I want to pause there because it's not easy to let these, or it is easy to let these numbers kind of numb us. 343 firefighters, 71 police officers. It's kind of easy to let those numbers numb us a little bit. But every number, there is a name. Behind every name, a face. And behind every face, a family. And today, I'm just going to read a few. Father Michael Judge. He was a Catholic priest who ran into the towers to anoint the dying. He was killed when debris struck him. His body was carried out by firefighters in one of the most iconic photos of 9/11. Wells Crowther, age 24. He was an equities trader, known forever as the man with the red bandana. He led dozens of people down to safety from the South Tower, went back up to save more, and then never made it out himself. Barbara Olson, she was a passenger on Flight 77, who called her husband, the U.S. Solicitor General, to say her goodbyes before her plane struck the Pentagon. Heroes, every single one of them, heroes, there's a face. I want to came about what happened after, because while heroes rose up from the rubble, so did something else. Questions. Okay, questions that even 24 years later remain unanswered. How did 3 steel skyscrapers collapse at near free fall speed? Okay, Why did Building 7 fall when it wasn't even hit by a plane? Why were military jets told to stand down when hijacked planes roamed the skies? Okay. Why did so many warnings from foreign intelligence agencies, warnings about Al-Qaeda and hijackings go unheeded? There were warnings that this would potentially happen, and they went unheeded. And why, of all mornings, were military exercises running that simulated hijacked planes, creating confusion about what was real and what was training? Okay, so of all mornings, there was military exercises going on. A lot of people don't know this, but they were simulating hijacked planes, these military exercises. And there's a point where it got really confusing. There's points in that day where it got confusing and people didn't really know what was the military exercise and what was actually the military, or like what was the actual hijacked plane. So now listen, I'm not saying your neighbor down the street pulled the trigger, or that some shadowy figure in the basement hit the demolition button. Okay, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there's more to this story still, even 24 years later, that we're not getting. And I am saying that there's more to this story that we're not told. There's an official narrative out there that is filled with holes. I just raised a few questions. I mean, nobody heeded the warnings that something like this could happen from the foreign intelligence agencies. Nobody can really explain why 3 steel skyscrapers collapsed near free fall speed. I mean, physics doesn't work that way. And the Building 7 fall, it wasn't even hit by a plane. How did that fall? And when questions are met with no answers, but rather ridicule and saying you're a conspiracy theorist, Kat, you've touched a nerve. So here's the hard truth: the government lies. Leaders lie. History is full of false flags, operations designed to deceive. The Gulf of Tonkin incident that dragged us deeper into Vietnam, later admitted to be largely fabricated. Operation Northwoods, a declassified plan where our own military proposed staging of fake terror attacks to justify a war with Cuba. Okay, so don't take my word for it. Look it up. So when Americans ask, could 9/11 have been an inside job, or did they know about it and did they not do anything about it? You're not crazy. You're just cautious, and you're students of history. You've seen this kind of play out. The Gulf of Tonkin incident dragged us deeper into Vietnam. It was later admitted that it was largely fabricated. The Operation Northwoods, a declassified plan where our own military proposed staging of fake terror attacks to justify a war with Cuba. You're a student of history, and I don't blame you for asking, was 9/11 an inside job? Is there more to this story? Meanwhile, look at what 9/11 did for the political class. Endless wars, surveillance state, the Patriot Act, Department of Homeland Security, TSA pat-downs where they treat grandmas like terrorists, okay, trillions in defense contracts, oil deals, power, control. If you don't at least consider the possibility of manipulation, you're not paying attention. And, I have to laugh to keep from crying, but George W. Bush sitting in that classroom with my pet goat, as the towers burned and he was frozen like a deer in headlights. Dick Cheney barking orders from a bunker telling NORAD to stand down. Donald Rumsfeld, whose Pentagon budget couldn't account for $2 trillion, $2 trillion with a T, by the way, announced just a day before 9/11. And then conveniently, the records office in Pentagon gets blown up. Okay. Coincidence? Maybe all of that. But forgive me if I don't buy the official line with a smile. There's just so many odd things. Dick Cheney barking the orders from the bunker telling NORAD to stand down. Donald Rumsfeld, whose Pentagon budget couldn't account for $2 trillion. And then they announced that the day before 9/11. And then conveniently, the records office in the Pentagon blows up. Right? So, I don't want to drift too far into suspicion, but we can't forget the people at the center of the people, the victims, the heroes, because if we chase these theories, I don't want to chase theories that dishonor the flesh and blood lives that are lost. I'm not trying to dishonor those people by raising these questions and by pointing out these questions and these questions that haven't been answered for 24 years. I'm not trying to do that because there was real flesh and blood lives lost. But if we only focus on the tragedy, we forget the shining courage that day revealed. Okay. So, and if we don't answer these questions, those people, their deaths, we have to try to explain their deaths as much as possible and get some of these questions answered. So let's honor the memory of people like Wells Crother, Todd Beamer, Father Michael Judge. Let's honor the firefighters who died with hoses in their hands, and the police officers who fell with badges on their chest, and the ordinary office workers who carried their disabled colleagues down 20 flights of stairs, okay? And at the same time, we have to keep arguing these questions about the failures, the cover-ups, the weird coincidences, the inconsistencies that stain the pages of history. Because the truth matters, justice matters, and truly, if you don't get these answers, is there really justice for these victims? And if we don't demand them, no one will. So Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way, though the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, or might we say the towers fall into dust. On 9/11, America's towers fell, but our courage rose, our faith rose, and our unity rose. The only question is, will we hold on to that spirit today? Or will we let politicians and pundits use the day for forever as a tool to control us? And my prayer is that we never forget, not just the day, but the names. We never forget the names, but we also never forget the questions that haven't been answered. Evil is real. These heroes are real, and the truth must be sought, even if it's uncomfortable. This has been the Conservative Cat Show. I wanted to bring up 9/11, never forget. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. He had a big show today. It was heavy. Prayers for the Kirk family, praying for those who lost loved ones, lost heroes on 9/11. On this September 11th, let's not forget the lives lost, never forget the heroes made, and never stop demanding the truth. Because liberty is fragile, and freedom, once surrendered in fear, may never return. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you so much. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.